an issue, like a topic of discussion.
I'll bite. Like rent control?
Yes.
Like small business subsidies?
Yes!
Like violence in children's television?
Yes! How do you feel about it?
Great!
I got you stuck off the realness.
All right, what's up, guys? This is Critical Masses tuning in. What's up, guys? Everyone there?
What's up, y'all?
All right, so this is our first podcast. So if it sounds a little shaky, we're just kind of filling out the groove here. But some of y'all might know me. I'm probably going to post this on my social media. So I'm Waya. I'm a b-boy from South Carolina, and I'm currently going to Clemson University for sociology and philosophy.
So various different types of cancer.
All right. I'm Michael Tavera. I mainly I go by Jambo. I primarily work in tech. Not too much of anything interesting there yet, but hey.
Oh, and you're a b-boy.
Oh yeah. I am also a b-boy. I dance.
There's a common thing that holds all of us together. I mean, we have a lot more in common than just that, but that is how we met, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're also missing one today too. Hopefully Elite, my crew member from Dynamic, will be able to join us next time. He's, I think, currently on a plane to go judge in Spain.
No, he's in Colombia right now, judging an event.
He's going to Bogota.
Oh shit. See, this man, damn tumbleweed. I can't keep up with him. All right, y'all. So I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while. I think a lot of other b-boy crews and groups like ours that we've got together here, I think sometimes when we get in a group together, we are always like, we'll say something out and it's either really funny or just a really good take. I feel like a lot of other crews probably have that feeling too, and feel like, oh, we should try to put some of this energy out in the universe for other people to hear. So this is kind of like what we're doing. We don't necessarily want this to be strictly breaking. I actually, personally, I prefer it to be more of on the issue of culture in general, or issues in culture in general. But we're just gonna kind of go with the flow, and hopefully we'll get some more topics in the future from some listeners. But right now, our topic today, as far as introducing the podcast and each other, we're also going to be discussing art and life, specifically how to balance the two.
Oof, that's a question. That is the question, right? For every artist out there, for any creative, how do you balance if you're not a career artist, right? How do you balance a creative life and your personal and professional life? And that's hard. It's super hard.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we talked about this particular subject a couple of times before, and I feel like, especially within the United States, where the arts are kind of seen as like something that you do as like a side hobby or something to pass the time. It's not seen as something profitable, and I think that's where the issue lies in trying to form a solid career in art. Whereas like speaking from my experience, I was part of a contemporary circus troupe called Nouveau Cid. Shout out to Carlos Alexis Cruz and Teresa and Jordan and Jarrell and Brandon. I love like there's a whole bunch of other people. But it would be very rough for us to even get like a space where we could train and rehearse. So we would have to cut out all these deals like, hey, we'll perform for you for like these events, and then they would let us utilize their space. But even then, the paid gigs like, weren't even enough to like cover the cost of like training for them. So like we would probably get like we would do all these small gigs and we'll get $100 each, which honestly is a lot considering like most people who do gigs don't even get that much sometimes. Most of our big money comes from like doing like theater shows and all that. But even then, for theater shows like that, that's like very time consuming. I would get off at work at like 5 p.m., go straight directly to the space that was provided for us. And then within the span of from 6 p.m. to like basically 11 at night, we use that time to train, practice, exercise, and rehearse. And it'll be like an everyday thing. And that's excruciating.
Yeah, I remember you guys. Y'all trained like crazy, man, and like this. Just to put it in perspective for the listeners, like this wasn't just some like thrown together crew. Like these were legit circus professionals. Like yeah, there were b-boys and other dancers and artists involved, but collectively it was a professional circus. And I think outside looking in, the lifestyle of an artist, especially presented by media, can sometimes look extraordinary. And I think that's one of the problems that we face is that, as artists, specifically for us dancers, we are people and we have real world struggles, maybe even more than people that aren't professional artists, I would argue. So I definitely think that that's one of the problems is the actual how the media presents these artists in an extravagant way.
Yeah, I think especially, I mean, and we've already mentioned this earlier, right? That America has a very, very skewed view of the arts in general, right? Like we hear those tired tropes and those sayings like, oh, like you should do something with your life that's useful, that's practical. And I don't think that the average American really sees the value in art, even though Americans by and large are some of the biggest consumers of art, right? From entertainment, music, graphic design, even for lack of a better word, practical art like architectural design, right? It's hard for people to give intrinsic value to things if they don't see a numerical dollar value next to those things, right? And I think that's where a lot of people get wrapped up in confusing, well, how much time should I devote to my craft, to my passion, to art? Because this doesn't pay the bills, this doesn't put food on my table for me and my family, this doesn't take care of my kids, this doesn't afford me healthcare. For the very rare few artists that it does, that's great. And the media does portray them as people who are like very, very extravagant wealthy people, like like Damien Hirst, right? Or any of like the famous contemporary authors that there are now, like that guy who made Vanta Black the most black color of all time and then wouldn't let anyone use it for less than $10,000. I think he was actually also you have to fact check me on this, but I think he was also the architecture behind the Bean, the giant sculpture.
Yeah, that was him.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem. And I think that something that people can do to figure out how to balance their personal life and then their artistic life, right? Even if you are a career artist or a professional artist, is to be able to separate your personal life from your creative life, which is a lot harder to do in practice than it is to just say it out loud, right? Especially for people whose livelihood is in their art, right? Because your art affects what you eat, what you wear, what you can and can't afford. But I do think it's healthy to separate the two so that you can objectively look at the two and say, well, all right, I've been neglecting this part of my life. I need to invest more of myself into this, or I have been putting too much emphasis on one side. I need to switch gears and have some balance. But it's hard, y'all. It's hard.
Dude, I'm totally with you right there, man. After like going through that for just like a little bit, man, and especially like within these artistic spaces, of course, there's going to be, people that have the privilege to go at it 100%. Whether they're backed by family or some other form of backing that I'm unaware of. There's definitely is a difference that, like, you see the difference in skill. Um, but even then, like, I think there's something that there's a particular way of how it's viewed. So there's this dude that I would occasionally see on TikTok, and like his whole entire channel is about basically debunking the myth of like artists who are self-made, and it's not to put them down or whatever, but it's more so recognize that there are much more factors at play. This is mainly for musicians, of course, but like he'd be calling out artists like Ariana Grande or whatever, saying that she was like self-made, but like her parents are literal like millionaires. With all that money, she was able to like focus 100% on music, uh, get voice coaches and all this and that. But even then, like, there's nothing. Is there anything intrinsically wrong with that? Like, I feel like if we can like implement that on like a more public scale, and just imagine like what would be able to be pushed out, like if artists, especially like musicians, since they make a lot of bank, um, how can people say? How can people say? People around you say like, oh, well, you can't necessarily pursue that because there's nothing good that can come out of it. But yet, you have like somebody earning like a $10 million check for like putting out a tweet. You feel me?
Right. I think one issue that's hard to separate is, because the subject, now is balancing art and life. And right now, all we've talked about so far is balancing art and money. And that's because our life has kind of just become based around labor and money. And that's what people are. People are based off their profession. That's when you talk, I mean, even us before, when we introduced ourselves, we were talking about our profession. That's just something inherently about us that, that's a part of our identity now. So now as artists too, we're balancing that art and life, but it's more of now it's balancing art and work. And it's funny that I haven't really seen this till now, but most of the issues with balancing art with your life is just, I get off work and I'm exhausted and I don't feel like training. I don't feel like practicing my craft. And that's the real problem. Like there's not that many normative life things that are drawing me back in my art. If anything, it's the opposite, right? It's I think it's Friedrich Nietzsche. I actually have this quote wrote down for this. The quote goes, "We have art so that we shall not die of reality." And it sounds pretty negative, but it actually has multiple meanings. Like it's saying that the art reflects the harshness of reality, but also that art reflects that reality itself. That if we don't have that art, then we don't have that representation of our reality, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I take the quote for face value as art is a form of escapism. It's a reprieve from everyday life. It's a place where we can go to get away from, our bosses, caring and accounting, all that noise that we really could do without, but we have to put up with so that we can pay our bills. But I agree with that a lot, that that art is a reflection of life and it helps us take a look at our life, right? Like when you look at, like, for example, we'll use our medium, breaking and dancing, as an example, right? Like you can tell like what kind of, at least I can, when I look at footage of myself break, whether I'm at a performance or it was a battle round, I can sort of tell like, oh, was I happy when I was dancing here? Was I angry? Was I frustrated? Was I rushing things? Was I taking my time? And I can tell like, oh, I was a little off today because I've been stressed and I look like I'm stressed when I'm dance, or oh, I'm in a really good place. All these good things have just happened to me and I'm smiling a lot more when I dance. So I agree wholeheartedly with the idea that art reflects the nature of the artist and their life.
Right,
Damn,
for sure.
You definitely brought up a very good point, and like it was originally supposed to be about like working out between like art and like life. The conversation always goes to money, and it definitely shows where like where our head is at, and like how we were conditioned to think that like, okay, these are the things that matter the most. But what would you say would be the preferred alternative? Like how would like how should we like handle this particular problem of trying to make the have the arts be taken seriously within our spaces and also as a viable career option,
For sure. I mean,
That's good.
I think it's rough. Like, I definitely think one subject in the future we should talk about is like, the culture industry and what I've been writing about with breaking in the culture industry. But
Yeah, for sure. Bring that up.
here's like another quote from Walter Benjamin that's kind of related to that. It says, "No poem is intended for the reader, no picture for the beholder, no symphony for the listener." And it's because art is that reflection of reality. It's not necessarily made to be commodified. And so then you have this intrinsic clash of the commodification of art, which is art isn't made to be commodified necessarily. It can be, but it's not made to always be digested by the masses. So you have this problem where either, no poem is intended for the reader. So do I change my poem so it is intended for the reader? But then is it still my art, right? Or at least wholeheartedly my art. So I feel like it's a hard problem to solve, and I think I don't think this is necessarily a problem between balancing life and art. I think it's a problem of just life in general right now that a lot of people are dealing with this world. It's it's hard to worry about something that isn't taken seriously like our art when things that are going on in the world are going on, simply put.
Do you think that a way for people to reconnect or rekindle their passion for their art or their creative endeavors would be to channel how they're feeling about the world into those things as an outlet?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure, for sure. I mean, yeah, I mean that's where breaking came from, right? I mean, breaking was the escape. It's a reflection of the reality that they were in, but it also was a form of like escapism. So I mean, you know, it's hard because, and that's actually why I don't necessarily prefer reading Nietzsche, but that's why I was kind of like falling into that corner, because he talks a lot about artists, like aesthetics, and how artists aren't good unless they suffer. And I know that sounds really dark, but what he means is like all the good art comes from a place of suffering, like uh and you can kind of see that where a lot of artists are really dope, especially like rap, right? You have this guy that's really dope and working really hard to get out there, and once they make it, they might fall off a little bit. And I feel like
No,
that's kind of shown in Nietzsche.
it's very interesting that you say that. I remember talking with a friend of mine, and she was saying that like every b-boy, everybody who starts b-boying always had like some type of like traumatic event in their past, and that's like her observation. So do you think there are like parallels to that as to like why people start b-boying, or like I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how true it is. I'm pretty sure there's some b-boys out there who haven't like been
I
through the
think
grit.
I think it's like that's like almost too many steps ahead. I think the real thing is that, is, yeah, I don't want this to sound like all liberally, but everyone has like traumatic things happen to them, right? And I think art is that manifestation of those problems, and using that and putting it out in the world. So I think to see a bunch of artists together in that example is like b-boys, I think that it's just, I don't know, it's hard. I don't have any friends that haven't had like some detrimental thing in their upbringing. I don't know what that says about me, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You're right. I feel you on that.
I think, and this is completely anecdotal. Uh, for I think, how should I say this? I'm trying to think of a way to say this without like insulting some of my friends. And I think a lot of the b-boys that I know who started breaking and then stopped very quickly, they did so for a ton of reasons. One, because it's hard, right? Like breaking is not easy. It's like not very gratifying, because like you train for like 99 million hours and then you feel good for about 10 minutes when you finally hit a move after, crashing on your face over and over and over and over and over again, right? But I want to say, of the guys that start and then stop very abruptly are the people who don't have traumatic events in their lives to reference, right? And I think that's because they don't need the escapism or the outlet as much as people who do. And the people who do stick around because it's cathartic, you know,
Yeah.
expressing yourself through movement when you can't afford, paper or a canvas or brushes or charcoal or, or film, any other artistic medium. Breaking or dancing, at least it's free. You just need music to do it. You just need a beat to do it, and your body and a flat surface. Those things are easy to come by. And so what I think, and what I'll say, is that I think that the relationship between artist and art is cyclical, right? Because the artists and their life and their suffering necessitates an outlet, right? And
Yeah.
that happens to be, in our cases, it happens to be breaking, right? And then our breaking is a manifestation of that trauma or of our life, right? And so it goes back and forth. Like our life necessitates the art, and the art gives more and enriches the life because it's an outlet and it's a form of escapism that we can use.
Right.
I think that might explain why so many dancers and so many people, so many artists are the people who suffer, because they needed art to turn to address that trauma, or somewhere to put that trauma into words or dance, or to
Or
visualize
just
their
as an
trauma.
outlet,
Yeah, just as an outlet in general. And so that's why I think, and that's why I agree that, the good artists, they suffer. And I also think there's something there about like when you're really really angry, right? And you like when you're a kid, when you were a kid and you were really angry and nothing was going your way, and you would throw tantrums and you would like lose control of your body and like black out for like 15 seconds while you went wild. I think good art is a little bit like that, because when you're trying to create, right, and you're free of inhibition, that's when all of the things come out. And when you have the least inhibitions, when you're upset, when you're angry, when you are sad, when you're uncontrollably crying and you can't control yourself, right? When all of your emotions just come out, right?
right.
Like when you're happy, it's not so much that way, and it's harder to be real, and it's harder to be authentic. In I mean, I wouldn't say it's harder to be authentic, because when you're happy, you're just happy, but it's harder you want to focus on that happiness. You want to hold on to that happiness. When you're upset, you want to get rid of it as fast as you possibly can. So you just let it all out. And I think
Yeah.
that's why great art more often than not comes from a place of pain and suffering.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like people, especially this might be anecdotal, but I I have a tendency to hyperfixate on things, and I definitely did as a kid on breaking, and it just that hyperfixation just never really went away. And now I think it went from you know an outlet to being hyperfixated to now it's like almost like a safe zone for me. Like it's something that's so familiar that I can always go back to it in life. And kind of what you were saying too kind of segues into another quote that I wrote down for this, and it actually comes from Albert Camus, and it says, "We have art in order not to die of life." And that's actually picked that one because it's almost the same as what Nietzsche was saying, where it has a dual purpose. It's talking about not only art as the reflection of light, but also as the outlet from it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's funny how this conversation has turned into such a path of psychology. I didn't expect that to happen, but it's funny how this is exactly how I wanted it to go, even though I didn't know that's how it was going to go. If that makes sense.
So so for people who grow up having an artistic outlet or a creative outlet, when for lack of better words, when you grow up, right, when people lose touch with that creative outlet, even though it was such a pivotal role in their lives, how do people manage to to keep that connection and that bond with their creative and artistic side? And how do you reconcile the sides of yourself and the parts of your life that don't feed into your artistic life? How do you stay in contact with it? How do you keep the art alive?
I think it kind of boils down to being true and honest with yourself. Not trying to sound super cliche or whatever, but what I mean by that is recognizing like that in itself is another form of expression, and that's how you use that's a particular outlet that you use to explain things that are inexplicable otherwise. Like, let's see. Uh, damn, hold on. I'm trying to like think on like how I can articulate this. It's like you were saying before, Kata, where like you're throwing a tantrum, um, you're just extremely mad as a kid, and you just don't know how to like express that yet. You don't have the words for it, so you just kind of like either like jumping around, wilding out, and like that's anger as seen by a child, right? Well, isn't it the same way to like using these mediums as a form of like emotional expression? Uh, People who aren't able to properly use diction or articulate their thoughts properly, and they kind of like more to themselves a bit. I think it's more so about recognizing that not everything has to be all right, or not everything has to work out, in your favor, and just keep on going at it eventually, essentially, like we know we're not going to stick that move all the time or whatever, but we still do it. I feel like we reached an impasse and where people only, especially like, especially like nowadays for people who train for like competition um, or certain people who train for competition or for getting ready for events and all that. Um, I think it's the people who still do it for the sake of doing it, like some of the people that we know. It's more so about like just exploring like, oh, what's possible, and through that, understanding themselves a little bit, or like understanding what they themselves are going through.
Yeah, for sure. This is why I wanted Eli on here, bro. Like, I wanted that firsthand. This man be on the plane talking about balancing balancing art and life.
Well, I feel like Eli is the perfect example of this because he does it both as a passion and as a professional.
Yeah, for sure, and damn good at it too. I feel like I don't know about you guys, but I definitely went through a couple of years of my life where I tried to make breaking work, and I just never really got past that plateau, mostly, got my bills paid with gigs and winning little cipher kings here and there or whatever to pay some bills. But I feel like when I went to go to school, that's kind of where Eli has kind of just like zoomed, and I'm proud of him for that for sure, because whatever it is, he's got it figured out. And that's definitely not an easy thing to do. So he's flipped the whole equation. He said, why balance life and art? I'll just make life art. And I think that's something that's always going to be admirable, right?
No, for sure.
I mean, I'm not gonna front. I'm jealous and super proud of Eli at the same time. I'm super proud of anybody that can transform their art into, a full-time career that, pays for your bills and puts food on the table. It's not easy. Not a lot of people have the talent and the work ethic to get that done. I feel like a lot of b-boys go through that whole period in their lives where they're like, man, could I really turn this into a full-time gig? Could I do this forever? Could I make it? Could I be financially stable? You know what I mean? It's hard. I used breaking in college to pay a lot of my bills, and I did a lot of shows. I danced for Big Daddy Kane. I danced for Ghostface and Raekwon. A lot of people, Action Bronson. I did a lot of shows. I did a lot of performances. I danced for the Carolina Hurricanes, our NHL team.
And we pulling out the resumes. Hold up.
It
But
it just, but even regardless of doing, what at the time was like such a big, serious gig for me, because I was used to doing, like street performances at food truck rodeos, or performing at different festivals in at the Capitol and stuff like that. Getting to do these shows for the first time, it felt like, oh, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could become a professional dancer, go on tours, be a part of shows, get an agent, move. And it was hard. Some of these shows were not even really paying all that much money. And so for me, what I decided was that, okay, I'm not going to pursue dance as a career, but I'm not going to give up breaking just because I have, what people would consider a very serious jobby job, or, technical career. What I'm going to do is I am going to work and invest more of my money into my creative passions. And so what I did was, instead of spending my money on, I had just graduated, I finally had adult money, I didn't know what to do with it. Instead of like, going out and buying clothes, or going out and partying, or going out and buying a nice car, I spent my money on traveling, and I spent my money on going to jams. That's what I did for the first year that I was out of school. And so my whole way of balancing my professional and personal life with my creative life was that I make my money work for me, and I work, and I work really hard so that I can afford to still dance. And that's worked for me so far. Like, I feel like I've danced a lot longer than a lot of people get to. I've gotten to go and see a lot of things that a lot of other people haven't gotten to, and it's afforded me the opportunity to make other opportunities for people now, which I'm really thankful for. But that's that's sort of the way that I balance art in life, is by making my life work in a way that I can support my art, and I don't need to worry anymore if, I get a gig, or if I win a jam, or if I, this, that, or the other. It's purely just, all right, my bills are paid. I've got money. I can dance, and I
Yeah.
can do it purely for my own enjoyment, purely for, my sanity. And I don't need to worry about all that extra noise. And I think that's something that particularly like a lot of b-boys struggle with, right? You're either like, breaking doesn't pay the bills, it doesn't help me in life, I'm done with it. Or they're, 10 toes deep, just breaking and struggling to live, and the art suffers for that. Because you're not in a place where you're like, oh, like I have like, the security that I need to like actually be able to break the way that I want to break. Like I can't afford to travel to jams or compete. Like I have to worry about, you know, my my light bill. And it sucks. But that's sort of the way that I approach it.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, just to kind of backtrack a little bit, I think the funniest thing about breaking is, sometimes you end up performing for these crazy artists. And like, I remember one time we opened up for KRS-One. He was performing, and I remember being so hyped to do that. And it's been kind of fresh in my mind because all the guys from Dragon House did that music video with KRS-One this week, which is dope to see that, there's some stuff still going on in the industry right now, even though things have been kind of weird for the past 2 years with COVID. But it's always funny, like, you're with this high profile like person that's supposed to be like, the embodiment of hip hop, and me and the crew got paid more to do a JC Penney's commercial. And and I think that's the one of the funny things about breaking professionally is like, you know, it's I don't even, some of the guys listening, hopefully some of the other crew will be listening and remember this JC Penney's commercial we did, but I'm not even gonna talk about it and put it out there. But they had us in outfits, that's all I'm gonna say, and it was mad awkward. But
Bro, they got you out there wearing the grape suit, bro.
no, yo, there was fake beards involved. That's all you're getting. That's all you're getting.
Bro, how old are you? Like 14 or something?
Hell no. I think I was 21. The rest of the guys were, because this was with DOA back in the day. So this was 6 years ago, I think. 5 or 6 years ago. So, all those guys are younger than me, minus Shinobi. And so, I was 21 and we were out of town. And I'm like trying to drink and shit too. I just got my pockets lined by JC Penney's. I was trying to go out, have fun, get this beard glue off my face, and I couldn't even go out. And that's like another funny part about breaking is like, I'm getting these gigs, but I'm also with a bunch of underage cats. I can't even go out and chill. I love you guys though. I love you, DOA. Shout outs to Tahu and Doma. But yeah, I mean, I guess as far as to stay on subject with balancing life and art, I feel like now I definitely put breaking on the back burner when I decided to go back to college, which I think kind of like surprised a lot of people, because I think I decided to go back at a time where I feel like I was doing pretty well. I'd been down with Dynamic for a couple years. We'd won a couple jams, and I had an ultimatum where, I was going to try to either tour with Eli next time, or I could go to school. And for those that don't know, I have more loves than breaking. I also love literature and philosophy. And so I ended up deciding to go to school. And I think another way I put breaking on the back burner was I write a lot with my major, and I didn't want to write about breaking because it almost felt so close to me and such a big part of me that I feel like I was going to do it a disservice to write about until I was ready and felt like and personally I still don't, which is one reason I wanted to do this with you guys, so we can talk about some of these ideas that I have floating around. So yeah, I mean, even from just a point of just respect for the culture, I feel like even I have a hard time balancing it with even just academic work, you know.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Like you know, I don't have quite the extensive dance resume like you guys do, okay? But
That's because you got a real beard, bro.
but chill. But the gigs that I did, you know, of course are like measly, like $75 to literally dance for 3 hours straight on concrete while the sun is blaring out.
That's the day.
Yeah, right. And then you know, they got more and more professional. So in my case, I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. Like I kind of like when it came to like working, figuring out what I wanted to do for work or what I wanted to do for a living in general, I would never figure that out, especially throughout high school. So like of course in high school I would like you know, I would be hyper fixated on breaking because I don't know, it was just something that like draws me in. I was finally getting to know people. I was like getting involved with the scene more. I was like learning all these moves, and it was like real dope. When I started performing, it was like, of course, like at school for like a talent show, and then I was like, oh man, this feels kind of amazing. Of course, aside from that, I've always had other interests in other things like tech. You know, I work in tech, and I've always been interested in tech, and uh, just over the overall umbrella term. Um, I also like learning about random things, but the only thing that's ever been consistent has been, you know, dancing. Through dancing, I was able to I was offered various opportunities, and that's how I got started in contemporary circus. And to this day, I still think about like, you know, what if I continue to do that? You know, I kind of hate thinking like having that particular thought. Like, oh, thinking back on, you know, like particular regrets and all that. Like, oh, what if I just continued to do this, and what if I like went harder at this and that? But of course, you know, there's other stresses in your life that affect the decisions that you make towards, you know, when it comes to making a living. You know, like of course, um, being like a first generation immigrant, uh, your family is definitely not going to be supportive of you, like doing stuff like that for money. You know, because they don't see it as a viable career option. And that like whenever like of course no matter how many times I tried to ignore it or combat it, eventually the paranoia got to me, like, you know, what I'm gonna do for my life in the long run and all this and that. And even then, I could try my best, like, you know, people around me in like Charlotte know me and all this and that. Like I got a little bit of notoriety. I'm doing shows. I'm doing shows in theaters. I like um we did this show for like Nouveau Sud out in Tennessee, so we could get like a touring grant, which we got out of compared to other, you know, troops, you know, or other groups that like tried to apply for the grant as well, and we were the ones who got that. But uh, it's just kind of hard to like despite all that and despite all that I've accomplished, um, of course, in the back of my mind, you know, I had this thought of like, oh, this still isn't sustainable, blah blah blah, and I decided to put a focus on on a more quote unquote formal career. And it's just like it's kind of like sad to think about sometimes, but this is hard. Like it was very hard, especially when COVID hit. because like what could you do then, in that situation? Like how could you handle yourself then? I mean, there's people who still do it though, but man, that shit hurts sometimes.
No, it really does. And I really like where the discussion is kind of went to a bunch of places I wasn't expecting, which is a good thing. And I think you know, I feel like we touched a bunch of topics that are definitely going to get brought up in the future as well, especially with, speaking on the commodification of art. Um, so I'm not sure if you guys have any closing thoughts or anything on the subject, and then we can maybe go on to discuss like future endeavors as far as like what we want to do with the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I want to leave this topic on, the idea of balancing art and life. It makes it sound sort of like art is not a part of life, but it is at the end of the day, right? Your art is an extension of your life. It's just that everybody's life is dynamic. It's not static. It's not just one thing. Your life is a living, breathing thing, right?
It's you.
Yeah, it's you. It was 100% you. So it doesn't even come down to how do you balance your art and your life. It comes down to how do you bring balance to yourself, I think.
Well said.
And I think everyone has a different way of finding balance, right? Like Eli found a way to balance his life and his art in a way where his whole life is art. That was his way of balancing it, you know. For a lot of people, balancing their art and life looks a lot different. But what I will say is that like true passion and true art is hard to come across. Like real, genuine passion in people. Um, and it's really sad when you see people's passions, when you see that fire get extinguished.
Yeah,
It's
it's
worth
hard.
it. Yeah, it's super hard, and it's worth it. It's worth it to yourself. It's people deserve to have and foster their passions. Um, so do it in a way that makes sense to you, and do it in a way where you don't have to sacrifice things that bring you joy or bring you peace of mind or comfort. If art does those things for you, then make an attempt. Try to foster it. Try to foster that love. Try to move things around, and make sacrifices to less important parts of your life so that you can keep it going, keep it moving.
Yeah, most definitely. I think one thing too, and one reason we made this about art and life and not just breaking in life, since all of us are b-boys, is because balancing art and life might be balancing other mediums in life too. And I think one thing is breaking made me put writing and literature on the back burner for a lot of my life, and now I'm catching up and trying to put more into that, and I'm enjoying both. So I think that's always something to think about, is use breaking as your outlet and as your mirror to show your reality, but also don't get caught up in that mirror because it's not the real thing, if that makes sense. That'll be my closing thought on it.
Man, I'd say with my closing thoughts is like I told myself that because there are other things that do matter to me outside of like dancing and all that. Like I really enjoy cooking, and I really enjoy like reading like manga and like comic books and all that stuff. And um, there's a whole bunch of other avenues that I want to explore. And I guess I told myself like within this year I wanted to be able to explore all of them without being inhibited by the other. You know what I'm saying? So I want to be more like I guess I'm gonna close off on um I guess trying to be more truthful and realistic about like what's attainable for yourself and like what you really want at the moment. And it's okay to change that up and switch it up from time to time because there's like it's like Kata said a while ago, like nothing is static, you know. So it's dynamic, you know. There's ups and
Shout outs
downs,
to
left and right.
Dynamic.
Right.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming this podcast. I knew we were gonna make it through the first episode without hearing that. I knew it.
Yo, I this paper I was writing, I snuck in that I was in Dynamic Rockers in it, and it feels bad every time I read it. I'm like, yo, by the way, I'm in Dynamic Rockers too.
No, talk your shit. Let it go. Let everybody know. Let everybody in the academic world know that you're a dynamic rocker.
Yeah, for whatever it means to them. They're like, oh man, this guy's in. He's like, oh man, he's an academic. He's a dancer and he's in a band.
They don't even know. They don't even know, bro. It's like even better when it's an undercover flex like that. When you're like, oh, these people don't even know. They don't even know what I'm capable of.
Oh, geez, I wouldn't put it out like that. But yo, guys, I really like where this conversation went for sure. Like, I definitely feel like, you know, this is our first time of us all like actually recording together. So we're definitely gonna have to like edit some stuff. But I feel like it went really well, and I feel like you know, I'm not sure how much like actual participation we're gonna get with our audience. But I'm hoping that some of y'all listening, hopefully, especially Eli, since you know, we were shouting him out the whole time. This became balancing art, life, and the love of Eli. But you know, I would like to get some stuff from you guys. You know, what do you want us to talk about? What subject do you want us to hear about? What do you want to hear us shit talk about? Because that's definitely something I want to talk about in the future is, you know, maybe what's the controversial take of the B-Boy Week?
I think this is going to be interesting and fun thing to do. I never, you know, at first, I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit apprehensive because I feel like usually there's not a lot that I think I would have to contribute, but this is also, I decided to take the chance to do so, and like it's fun so far, because it kind of makes me work more on my work more towards literature, which I've been wanting to do. I wanted to do more reading, more research, because I want to provide like much better quality content in the future as well. I just wanted to see like where this would go, and it's like I think this would be dope to do down the line.
Yeah, that actually reminds me. If you are all still listening, you know, we're going to be doing this podcast, but also on our page, we're going to have blogs. I've already got a couple of things written that I'm hoping to publish on there soon. And if the guys want to write anything, they're obviously welcome to. And if anyone wants to send in some stuff, you know, we can talk about posting it or even just having discussions about it in general. But, you know, I want this to be a multi-medium like hub. I don't, you know, not just podcasts, there'll be blogs involved. We might have some interviews in the future, and even you know, maybe do some streaming. The guys are more of gamers than I am. Of course, I've been playing Arceus for the past week, but maybe we can even like stream like Rebel BC1 and get some smack talk involved. But you know, whatever you guys are feeling, right?
I should play Arceus. I bought it on opening, and I still haven't touched it yet.
Bro,
Yo, it's so good.
But
I'm gonna
only
be real too.
because I've been playing Elden Ring instead, because I'm a masochist and I derive pleasure from pain.
Like, I'm gonna be real with y'all. Pokemon Arceus just looks like Pokemon Coliseum, but you actually just walk around.
No, it looks like it's Pokemon Breath of the Wild is what it is.
I mean, if it was Pokemon Coliseum where you just walk around, I'd still be about it. I love that game. I remember when Pokemon Coliseum came out, the day that it came out, I bought it, but I wasn't allowed to play it because my parents grounded me. So I had to wait. I had to
Oh,
wait, yeah, because I got a B plus in English. Shout out to shout out to all those harsh immigrant parents. That's what happened. I got a B plus in English, so they wouldn't let me play it for a week. And that was all I wanted to do. And when I finally got to play it, oh, I wilded out on that game for like hours. I think I left this planet, and like my soul left, but my body was still here playing Pokemon Coliseum. That Licky Tongue game with the revolving sushi game is lit. To
Yo.
this day, one of my favorites still.
that game was so far beyond other like Nintendo games at the time. It's so wild to me that, I mean, I kind of get like putting 3D games on the back burner with the technology and the time, but man, like, I mean, there's definitely some truth behind saying this is like Pokemon yeah. Coliseum, Jesus.
Coliseum.
But walking around, I mean, yo, this game is dope. Like, I'm excited for the next gen for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next gen after this, the one that they're releasing later this year. And I will play RC at some point in time. I can't, like, my ego and my man pride won't let me put down Elden Ring, because like every time I get my ass kicked, I'm just like, oh no,
Bro.
Nope. We run that back. Run, like,
Bro,
I get angry.
What class did you start with?
Warrior. I'm running a Dex build right now. I'm a warrior, but like honestly, I feel like it's kind of useless because like magic is so overpowered in this game. Like late game magic, you just one shot bosses, and so I'm like rethinking my whole existence in this game right now.
Bro, I started off with that with the prisoner.
Oh yeah. Oh, you little kinky. You like the mask. You like the gimp
Bro,
mask.
why is everybody-
I see you, Jambo. I shouldn't have expected anything less.
Bro,
He's like, oh, well, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I pick the prisoner?
Ooh, that looks like that's my Friday night outfit right there. I'm gonna go with this guy.
Bro, what you mean? I went with the prisoner because it had a decent magic stat and a decent dex stat. I'm gonna go with like a int dex build and a little bit of strength.
I see, classic spell sword. I think that's what I'm gonna do on my next playthrough. But right now, like if I'm like really torn between just like building like a really dope like claw or like dex sword build, and there's armor builds in the game that there's like a metallic boar head and like giant katanas that like do cool slashy stuff. I'm really thinking about making a Nosuke from Demon Slayer but in Elden Ring. Like no chest armor, just plain pants, metallic boar head, double katanas, full decks, and just like shredding things to pieces. That seems like a lot of fun, but like I don't want to be that guy that makes his favorite anime character in a video game. Like I don't want to let the world know how much of a weeb I am, you know.
Bro, you let
It's
them
too
know
late.
right now.
It's on the podcast. I'm
Okay,
not cutting it out.
hey, listeners, listeners, let me holler at y'all for a second. I like anime, but not like that. All right.
Yo, we're all b-boys here. They already knew we liked anime.
That's pretty true. You're right. I outed myself from the moment I signed up to be on this podcast in the first place. I played myself.
Yo, guys. All right. I think that's it. I hope y'all have a good night, and we'll see you guys in the next recording.
Hit us up with your ideas, you know, anything that you guys want us to talk about, anything that you think would be interesting for us to examine and discuss. Let us know.
I got you stuck off the realness.